When Michael Jordan approached the microphone, the press conference room became silent. Every reporter could see the determination in his jaw. It was the same expression he'd had in those crucial finals moments. However, this had nothing to do with basketball. Justice was at issue here. Do you wish to pass judgment on Caitlin Clark? Like a knife, Jordan's voice sliced through the tension. Then allow me to share with you what I observed when no one else was around. How could the greatest basketball player in history risk his name to stand up for someone that most people were willing to discount? Jordan's next revelation altered everything, not just how the public perceived Caitlin Clark. Tell me where you're watching today in the comments section before we get started on this amazing tale. Click like and subscribe for more heartwarming stories that will rekindle your faith in human decency if you think it's important to see someone's true character before passing judgment. Let's now discuss what actually transpired that fateful spring afternoon. The sound of bouncing basketballs and squeaky trainers filled the old Des Moines gymnasium. An invitation-only skills camp had brought together college athletes from all around the Midwest. With notebooks in hand, elite coaches scouted the upcoming generation of talent as they lined the stands. A figure with dark sunglasses and a simple baseball cap pulled low sat in the rear corner, barely noticeable. Michael Jordan had arrived discreetly. Just a legend observing the game's future develop without any fanfare or announcements. Even when brilliance is concealed under layers of uncertainty and criticism, you can see that it frequently recognizes itself. Jordan's gaze steadily scanned the court. His decades of expertise have given him the ability to perceive things that others have missed. Good players were distinguished from great ones by their character, fundamentals, and intangibles. At that moment, he became aware of her. Compared to the other players, Caitlin Clark moved in a different way. Her shooting stroke was unique, but it wasn't the only thing. There was more to it. Clark was assisting a teammate who was having trouble with her footwork while other players celebrated their own achievements. She gave her bottle to a younger player who had misplaced hers when water broke was called. Tiny actions that conveyed a sense of personality. However, no one was aware that Clark was carrying responsibilities that no collegiate athlete ought to have. The family was having financial difficulties after her father lost his job 3 months prior. One of the most criticized players in college basketball, Clark maintained her grade point average while working part-time at a nearby diner and studying in between shifts. Her shot selection was criticized for being careless, her confidence haughty, and her style being too ostentatious for women's basketball. During practice, Jordan observed Clark making shot after shot. Instead of frustration, each miss is followed with quiet determination. He saw something in the way she moved. The same unwavering quest for excellence that had propelled him through innumerable early morning practice sessions. The same unwillingness to let criticism dictate how she plays. She reminds me of myself, Jordan would subsequently say to his assistant. Even so, he made sure that just one person could hear what he was saying. As the camp developed, Jordan made a choice that took everyone by surprise. Rather of making his presence known and causing mayhem, he stayed in the background, observing, learning, and researching not only Clark's game but also her personality. He would remember what he witnessed during those 3 days for years to come. Clark's squad fell behind by 15 points during a scrimmage. Her teammates were irritated. A few had already given up. At that moment, Clark did something that caused Jordan to recline in his seat. She spent the following 10 minutes setting up her teammates' 11 assists in the last quarter rather than forcing shots to boost her stats. Although Clark's individual stats appeared low, her team triumphed by 3 points. She refused to claim personal credit for the comeback and instead gave praise to her teammates in the post-game interview. How often do we see genuine leadership when no one significant is supposed to be present? Jordan recognized the same selfless motivation that had propelled his own championship teams, and he was seeing precisely that. However, there was more. Jordan saw Clark stick around to assist the maintenance team in cleaning up the gym following the scrimmage. Without being asked, she picked up trash, folded chairs, and swept floors. When one of the employees said that his daughter was a tremendous admirer, Clark talked to the 8-year-old girl for 20 minutes, signing basketballs and taking pictures until everyone in the family had a memory they would always cherish. Jordan called a few people that evening, including Clark's high school instructors, her previous coaches, and members of the Iowa community, rather than agents or coaches. What he found revealed a person whose character was as deep as her 3-point shooting range. During her junior year of high school, Clark volunteered at a nearby food bank, providing meals to families going through similar financial hardships as her own. When donations were insufficient, she used her personal funds to purchase equipment for the basketball clinics she had organized for impoverished children. She refused to be paid for her work while delivering goods to senior citizens in her neighborhood during the pandemic. The most amazing thing is how someone may embody greatness through regular acts of compassion that no one thought to publicize, rather than through huge gestures. Jordan was discovering that Clark's actual nature had always been concealed. In the meantime, criticism of Clark's collegiate career persisted. Her choice of shot was questioned by sports analysts. Critics on social media disparaged her character. She was deemed too self-centered for team basketball by former players. When a well-known sports magazine published a cover story titled "The Problem with Caitlin Clark" during her junior year, raising concerns about whether her personal success was detrimental to women's basketball, the criticism peaked. Jordan observed the media frenzy from a distance, his rage escalating with every unjust critique. These individuals were criticizing a character they had never personally seen and passing judgment on someone they had never met. When the cameras stopped filming, they were unaware of Caitlin Clark's true identity despite seeing highlight clips and statistics. A former coach's assertion that Clark is a self-centered player who prioritizes individual records over team achievement during a live television debate was the breaking point. Jordan had had enough. At that point, Michael Jordan did something unexpected. He made a call to the program. "I'm Michael Jordan, and I must correct the information regarding Caitlin Clark." There was silence in the studio. When the host realized that the greatest basketball player of all time was going to support someone who the sports world was aggressively criticizing, you could hear the amazement in his voice. "For the past 3 years, I have been observing this young lady." Jordan's voice exuded the same power that he had possessed on championship courts. "Her character, not just her games. And I'm here to tell you that every single critique directed at her is insulting to anyone who knows what true leadership looks like, in addition to being incorrect." This, of course, brings us to the point at which decades of covert monitoring finally burst into public defense. Jordan wasn't merely protecting a player. He was standing up for what he thought basketball ought to stand for. Are you curious about selfishness? I saw Caitlin Clark stick around to help colleagues get better at shooting after practice. I saw her donate her own gear to gamers who were unable to pay for it. I saw her break scoring records and retain flawless marks while working part-time jobs to support her family. When the TV host attempted to cut him off, Jordan persisted with the same ferocity he had shown during playoff games. Are you curious about the success of a team? Her leadership has contributed to her team's victory, not the other way around. Are you curious about character? I saw her teach basketball to children who couldn't afford camps and serve meals at food banks in her spare time. This young lady is the epitome of what we should look for in a role model. Jordan continued to appear on the caller ID screen while he made the pivotal sentence. Recognize this before passing judgment on Caitlin Clark. I have personally witnessed excellence. I've played both against and alongside champions, and I can tell you right now that Caitlin Clark has the character of someone who was reared well and the heart of a champion. Does somebody disparaging her character reflect more about themselves than about her? How can the public's perception be totally changed by a single phone call? Jordan was demonstrating that the truth can silence criticism and restore dignity when it is expressed with authority and passion. It had a seismic effect right away. Support for Clark erupted on social media. Her community involvement was the subject of an ESPN feature. Former detractors issued a public apology and withdrew their remarks. More significantly, though, young athletes nationwide discovered that their personalities were more significant than their numbers. That their legacy would eventually be determined by how they treated others when no one significant was around. Clark's mother called to inform her about Jordan's defense. When the call came in, she was sitting in her flat doing her homework while balancing her laptop on a pile of outstanding bills. You must watch the news, Caitlin. On national television, Michael Jordan just stood up for you. As Clark watched the video online, her hands shuddered. The guy she had idolized as a youngster, whose posters had adorned the walls of her childhood bedroom, had been observing her for years and had recognized her personality while everyone else saw simply controversy. However, the narrative does not conclude with vindication. It concludes with a purpose. Jordan's foundation called Clark 2 weeks later. They intended to collaborate with her current charitable endeavors, particularly supporting the Caitlin Clark Foundation's initiatives to give impoverished children access to sports, nutrition, and education. Jordan was impressed by her dedication to utilize basketball as a platform for positive change, in addition to her character. When they first met in person, Jordan said, "I told you I wanted to be the bridge to the next generation. You are not only a member of the upcoming generation. You will contribute to the construction of bridges for the children who will follow in your footsteps." Jordan discreetly started their collaboration by teaching Clark how to use his celebrity wisely in addition to basketball. He related anecdotes from his own professional life about the strain of public scrutiny and the significance of upholding your principles in the face of pressure from others to change. 6 months later, the Caitlin Clark Foundation had grown to serve 4 states, offering thousands of kids nutrition programs, basketball camps, and educational scholarships. Clark would never have been able to open doors on his own without Jordan's support. More significantly, though, his defense had shown her that character recognition is more vital than popular favor. Women's basketball and other sports were affected. Young athletes discovered that compassion and genuineness were just as vital as skill and drive. In addition to skill development, parents started placing more emphasis on character development. Coaches began assessing the full person rather than just the numbers. You can see that sometimes the most powerful moments occur when a person in a position of ultimate control decides to use their position to uphold the truth and restore dignity to someone who deserves better rather than for their own benefit. Nowadays, Caitlin Clark's scoring records from her championship campaigns are discussed when she is mentioned. However, they also discuss her character, her dedication to uplifting others, and her community work. They recall the people she touched and the example she established in addition to the basket she produced. Additionally, Michael Jordan demonstrated that excellence is more than just individual success. It's about seeing the good in people and having the guts to stand up when someone's character is being attacked. He demonstrated to the globe that the best players improve everyone around them in addition to their own games. Remember Michael Jordan's defense of Caitlin Clark the next time you hear someone being disparaged or condemned based on insufficient facts, and keep in mind that character is more important than numbers. Keep in mind that sometimes speaking up for someone who deserves better than the criticism they're experiencing is the most crucial thing we can do. Because in the end, someone is watching us all. Furthermore, the concern is not whether we will be flawless but rather whether we will be genuine, whether we will prioritize compassion over criticism, and if we will support people rather than undermine them. When no one else was looking, Michael Jordan recognized Caitlin Clark's true nature. And he had the guts to stand up when the world needed to hear the truth.